Wolfman, written and directed by Leigh Whannell. He co-wrote the story with a Corbett tech, and I've really been excited for this movie. I'm a massive fan of the original 1941 horror classic directed by George Wagner and starring Lon Chaney Jr. as Larry Talbot, the Wolfman. And when they announced that Leigh Whannell was going to be writing and directing this sort of reimagining or reboot of that horror classic, it got me really, really excited because I'm a big fan of Leigh Whannell as a director. I really liked what he did with Upgrade as well as The Invisible Man. Another sort of reimagining of a horror classic where he did a really good job at retaining the essence of what made that original special, but added a new sort of dimension to it. And I felt like that is, The Invisible Man is a really good example of how you remake or reimagine a movie that is a classic, that is already a very good movie in its own right. And I think Leigh Whannell did a really good job at remaking or reimagining The Invisible Man. So yes, I was really excited that we got Leigh Whannell bringing us this remake, this reboot of The Wolfman. So there are changes to that original story here within this reimagining, this reboot. There are changes to the lead characters' names as well as the setting in which it's based. I really dug the setting that they went for here with this version. So this story follows a Blake Lovell who moves with his workaholic wife Charlotte and their daughter Ginger to his childhood home in rural Oregon after inheriting it following his estranged father's mysterious disappearance. As they settle into the farmhouse, they are attacked by an unknown creature that claws Blake's arm. They barricade themselves inside the home, but Blake begins to transform into something horrifying, jeopardizing the safety of his wife and daughter. The film then goes on to explore the family's struggle to survive the night and the terrifying transformation of Blake into the classic Wolfman. So, on paper, when it comes to what it is they're attempting with this movie story, with its characters and its themes that they are exploring, for example, trauma, parenthood, regret, it has all the right ideas and ingredients to bring to life something that is not only familiar, but add a different dimension to it, a different perspective to it. A familiar story that would be psychologically deeper than what we've had before. Something that, really kind of digs into these very real and raw human emotions. And, this got me really excited, especially when I found out what it was they were exploring with its characters and its themes. I thought, yes, the ingredients are there to create something that is not only horrifying, but emotionally deep, that's going to swallow you up emotionally with these characters' stories. And to really sort of tap into the kind of the tragic aspect of the original story of the Wolfman. I mean, if any of you have seen that 1941 movie, it is a very tragic story, and there's an opportunity here to sort of really kind of take that element and just blow it up and just really sort of create something that's incredibly powerful but also terrifying. So, the movie starts off really strong for me. I really liked how the opening scene was constructed. We are introduced and it establishes our main character, a very young Blake Lovell, and we get a glimpse into his abusive and intense relationship with his father. And we've got this scene where Blake's dad takes him hunting. And in this scene, it really, it establishes what it is they are sort of going to explore really with this character of Blake. And even though this opening scene is one of the strongest moments within the film for me, there are also early signs of the issues that I was going to end up having with this entire experience. And one of those major issues is with the writing. So there's a moment or an exchange between the father and son, and I just felt like the writing didn't really feel organic or natural. Like, would you really have a grown adult, no matter sort of what the situation is, would you have someone talk to a child in that way maybe? But due to the situation between these two characters and sort of how it is sort of establishes them, I didn't really think too much into it at that point. And I was already sort of enjoying how this moment was being constructed from a sort of horror perspective, because I felt like Leigh Whannell does a really good job within this opening scene at creating suspense. And it gave me chills. It was quite creepy. I really dug how the moment played out. There's a moment where our two characters sort of flee into this treehouse, and just how that entire scene is constructed, and the fact that you don't see the wolfman, you just hear it. And it's aided by a great sound design. I think the sound design in this movie is one of its strongest elements. And you don't see the creature, but you'd see its breath. I just think how that scene just played out, I really liked it, and it really got me excited for the rest of the movie, even though I sort of already got that kind of, the early signs, really, or the early warnings of what was to come. So then the story takes us to present day, where we see a grown Blake Lovell. He's got a daughter, he has a workaholic wife, and you get that there's issues there with the relationship. Again, a very kind of interesting, intriguing sort of addition to these characters' sort of situation, and something that can kind of really create something incredibly deep psychologically and emotionally, and really sort of play in and tap into sort of the horror aspect of its story. But unfortunately, what really lets this aspect down of its story, this family dynamic and sort of the trauma basically that Blake Lovell is, eventually going to inflict on his family, it lacks the emotional punch that it needs because of its writing. My biggest issue with this movie that really lets this film down, among many other aspects, is its writing. It is so cold and robotic. It's very exposition heavy. Like, you do have to have, to some degree, exposition, but it is so heavy-handed here. It was almost like the writing sort of felt like a tech manual. And it was so on the nose with, sort of telling us, the viewer, explaining to us what it was that they were exploring with these characters. Like, it was just sort of very, just heavy-handed. Like, yeah, we get it. We know that this character is, has been affected by his relationship with his father, and it's obviously going to play a part with his relationship with his daughter and his wife, but just the way in which it comes to life through the writing, it results in an experience that lacks sort of that emotional depth that they are hoping to achieve. They want us to be emotionally swallowed up into these characters' journeys, but it fails because of how it's brought to life through the writing. It just didn't feel natural or organic. You'd have these moments, for example, with Blake and his daughter, and it's sort of like a moment that establishes the relationship between father and daughter, and it is so mechanical and robotic in how it kind of plays out. It's quite funny because the moment on paper is designed to kind of really add that very kind of human emotional layer to the story, that sort of very human and emotional depth to the story. But because of the writing and just how it plays out, it fails miserably at developing that. And it kind of just sums up the overall experience for me. It fails to really develop its ideas and its themes in a way that is engaging or coherent. And, it in many ways, it's focused because of how the film starts and ends. And it's, in terms of sort of how the story evolves, where they're sort of trapped into this house and they've got to survive the night. And so to a certain degree, it is a focused story, but it's also not, because of how its themes and its ideas with what it is they are exploring with these characters don't really fully come to fruition. And it's a shame. And it's very frustrating because it is there. The ingredients, the ideas, it's there in front of us. There is something incredibly powerful and special here, but it just doesn't come together to create one coherent sort of emotional thrill ride. The intentions are there, very clearly there, too obvious in fact, because of what I just said in how these characters and their relationships are established. You get these moments which are so damn obvious because the dialogue is as a result of the writing not being organic and natural, that it fails to deliver on that aspect of its story. The entire experience for me was kind of made up of these pockets of moments and really sort of nice kind of ideas within its story, and how the story would sort of, or how certain moments would be constructed, would sort of give us a glimpse into what could have been. For example, I liked how the camera would transition into different perspectives between the wife and the child and Blake, who is transitioning into this wolf. The camera would sort of switch and you would sort of, or transition, and you would sort of witness an event or a certain moment through the eyes of Blake. And it's tragic. Like, you could tell the idea behind this moment and sort of how this moment is constructed. It's engineered or designed to give the story that emotional weight that it needs. And even though I could kind of recognize it in that moment, I wasn't emotionally wrapped up as I should have been. Like, I just emotionally didn't really care because of how sort of these characters were written, but I could sort of sense or understand or get what it was they were attempting to achieve within these moments. Like I said, this film is full of really good moments and ideas from just a story perspective and a technical perspective, and how certain moments are constructed and how they play out. Like with the use of the camera, for example. Unfortunately, it just doesn't all come together to give us this kind of one powerful, emotional, horrifying, coherent experience. But it's there. It's very frustrating. Another positive for me, like there are positives within this movie, and I really want to talk about these positives. Because this is not an experience that I hated. It just didn't really work. But it's not one that's unwatchable either. If anything, it's more of an intriguing experience because of what it is they are attempting to do. And like I said, from a technical perspective and a story perspective, the potential is there, and you kind of get a glimpse into it, but it never really fully comes to life. But I really like the design of the Wolfman. And I think I am in a minority there, because a lot of people hate it. But for me, it kind of really hones in on that original design and sort of brings it into the 21st century by sort of bringing it to life in a way. Like, for example, there's a very brief moment where you see Blake start to sort of transform or transition. And just the way that scene plays out was great. And, you've got practical effects on display and it looks amazing. I really liked it, but again, it sort of added, or it fueled the frustration that I had with the experience, because it was another brief moment that really kind of showed off the potential of this film, of this experience, and it is just so brief. But it's also a moment among many other moments within this movie, especially during the second act and going into the third act, where none of the moments really kind of meld together to sort of really kind of create what is, a seamless narrative. Nothing from the themes to how the story is constructed, even though to a degree it is focused due to how the film starts and ends and sort of how it plays out. At the same time, it's still not really coherent to how every moment within the story plays out. But yeah, the design of the Wolfman for me it was kind of like a love letter to sort of the classic makeup effects from the 30s, the 40s, the 50s of bringing these horror creatures and these horror icons to life. And it's frustrating because I think it looks fucking great, but it's so fucking brief. And another positive I have is that we've got Benjamin Wallfish composing the music. I really liked the score here, but unfortunately it's not enough to help elevate or aid its story. Again, the music is just another aspect of this experience that kind of gives us a glimpse into what could have been. For example, sort of there's a piece of music in the very last shot of this film, and I adore it. And it says so much through the music in what you could kind of tell through the music in that moment what it was they were hoping or aiming to achieve with this story. And I do actually quite like how the movie opens and how it ends. It kind of really sort of, really clearly shows what it was they were aiming for here with this story. But it just fails, and it's heartbreaking. I think the only sort of heartbreaking thing about this experience is the fact that none of its ideas and what it is they're doing with this story really come together to give us a really strong, powerful, and truly terrifying and unnerving experience. Christopher Abbott as Blake and Julia Garner as Charlotte Lovell, this husband and wife, I really liked sort of what they were attempting to do in sort of bringing these characters to life. I just felt like perhaps their performances were maybe hindered by the writing. Like, there are moments where Julia Garner, she's just a little bit, perhaps a bit wooden and emotionless during certain moments, and I'm not entirely sure whether that was the writing or the direction. But at the same time, there are moments where you could sort of really see they're trying their hardest or their best to kind of really help sort of add to this sort of very human aspect of its story. And I liked, I did like what they were attempting to do with their characters. So yeah, Wolfman. The key ingredients are all there to craft what could have been a truly emotionally engaging, nerve-wracking experience. One that takes you on an emotional thrill ride. It's there on paper. It's written like a tech manual, but it is there. You've got the father who's there for the daughter, but inflicting his own childhood trauma onto her due to his own worries and concerns for her safety. You have the distant, disconnected wife, the mother who's swallowed up in her job and then ends up being put into a situation where it brings mother and daughter together. The ideas are there to create something that is emotionally powerful and has a fucking punch, an emotional punch to it. In many ways, it kind of reminded me a little bit of Aliens, where you have Ellen Ripley and Newt. You have that mother and daughter relationship that evolves through the story. In many ways, it almost felt inspired by James Cameron's Aliens, and again fuels the frustration of what this could have been. But due to it sort of being very disjointed and heavy-handed with how it handles these characters' journeys and themes, it just doesn't fully come to life. It doesn't come to fruition, and unfortunately you get a lot of these really good ideas, but nothing really sort of evolves from those ideas. So yeah, a frustrating one. I was disappointed. I didn't hate this movie. And I think a lot of that is just down to the fact that I could see a lot of what it was that Leigh Whannell was attempting here. I like Leigh Whannell as a director. I think he's a really good director, and he did a fantastic job with The Invisible Man. But something happened here, and I don't know what, but unfortunately, like I keep going on, and I keep mentioning this, the potential of what this could have been is there. And I feel like that is what kept me sort of locked in for the entire experience. And it's not an unwatchable experience. So yeah, enough rambling. They are my thoughts on Wolfman. And I'm going to probably be a little bit generous here with the score, but it's purely based on what I felt like they were attempting with this story. And you do have positives. I liked the very strong opening. And there are some really sort of cool, great ideas with what they're attempting to do with sort of the story and sort of how certain moments are constructed from a technical perspective. So they are my thoughts on Wolfman. And I will be giving Wolfman a 5 out of 10. They are my thoughts on Wolfman. But what did you guys think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you agree or disagree with anything I've said? Then please let me know in the comments below and let's get a discussion going. And if you've made it this far into the video, then thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And if you want to watch future movie reviews from just some random Welsh geek rambling on, then please hit the subscribe button. It will mean an awful lot to me. My next movie review, I'm not actually sure what my next movie review is going to be because I'm catching a mystery showing on Monday and I'm kind of hoping it's Flight Risk. It's a film that seems to tap into kind of like 90s action movies, nostalgia kind of thing, and I'm kind of liking what I'm seeing with the trailer. It's directed by Mel Gibson, and yeah, it kind of has a very kind of 90s action movie aesthetic to it, sort of in the vein of perhaps Cliffhanger or something like that. And so yeah, I'm hoping Flight Risk is going to be the mystery film. And I'll also have a review for Skeleton Crew, for the first season of Skeleton Crew. I did my initial reactions of episode 1 and 2. And I've watched the entire season now, and yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing with you all my thoughts on the latest Star Wars show from Disney. Another bit of a bumpy ride there, but yeah, just another big thank you to everyone that's engaging with the channel, connecting, whether it be liking, commenting, subscribing. It means an awful lot. I've gained a couple more subscribers over the last week through my baby girl review, which is doing really well at the moment when it comes to views. So a big thank you to all of those recent and new subscribers to my channel. Thank you for joining me and sort of on my journey here in sharing with you all my passion for film. There are a couple of upgrades on the way. I've mentioned in the community section of the channel that I am having issues at the moment with my camera, and there are issues with the dialogue as well, not quite syncing, and a lot of that is just down to the setup. It's a setup that I've used since 2015, and I think the camera is slowly on the way out, but I do have an upgrade on the way for the channel. I do have a brand new camera and mic on the way, which is going to really help when it comes to the audio and visual quality of this channel. So I'm looking forward to getting that all set up for everyone. So yeah, enough rambling. Thank you all for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll be catching you guys soon.